Okay, so more or less, this is like an explanation for my thought process and some of the things I had to change in the project to make it work for the previous video that I showed you on changing the colors. So this is just the general scene. Some things that I had to change. So I'm just gonna reference my package manager. So I didn't use AutoHand, not because AutoHand didn't install, but when I was trying to use the Oculus integration for my headset, it started throwing us some errors about using this specific input mapping. Then the input mapping it was trying to use one from the OpenXR, so it just caused a lot of conflicts back and forth. So I had to settle with just using OpenXR and the XR integration interaction toolkit. So that's the path that I took in terms of making it work again. It was working before. I don't know what happened. I think it was just because whenever I updated my Oculus, it probably caused some issues. So I've never really know for sure. But anyways, I had to switch to using the XR interaction toolkit instead, and essentially just build everything from scratch. So this simple scene is literally just a plain, nothing really going on special here except for like a teleportation area, which is XR interactions scripting for teleporting on different parts of the ground. I used continuous motion in my other video. I didn't use teleportation. And it just has an XR origin, and the camera offset is essentially the player. So this is kind of what I was explaining in the previous video. So you have a hand controller, right, which has all the configurations for the player's controller, all the interactions that you would need from UI to specific actions in game. So the left hand socket is an empty game object I created that's attached to the left hand controller. And then this is just a sphere. That's just part of it to kind of make it look like it has a wrist. So the sphere is just kind of my reference point for a wrist. But yeah, there's the sphere. There's the hand socket, which is literally the hand. So I just created a hand mesh and I just changed this material to green. And I did that with both hands. So the only reason I think that this was the better path, um, again, nothing against auto hand, but I think because with this, it makes it a lot easier just to go in and just swap out whatever hand socket we need because the cube that I used here, that is what's doing all of the work for swapping in the materials. So hypothetically, you could do the same thing from these materials with these hand meshes. So we could change the hand mesh from left hand mesh to right hand mesh. And then whenever the player interacts with this object, and this object can be any sort of trigger or collision or scene transfer, you would be able to change the hand mesh from whatever's in this socket to a different hand mesh. In this sense, I used a material. It's kind of like a testing for the logic. And this is, let me see, I have the logic right here. Don't know if you want to look through that, but it's pretty simple. So you just got the materials for that you're going to be referencing to swap with. You got the hand meshes itself along with their materials, and then essentially you're at start you're trying to find those materials which is it's referencing, and whenever this object collides with the tag player, it changes those materials to one of a list of materials. Had some issues with that, still trying to troubleshoot it, but the general logic works where I can just pick up an object and it'll change the color. So that was the intended goal. um so really that's like the most in-depth I can explain as far as like using XR versus using AutoHand. I don't think one is necessarily better than the other. It's just that when I was trying to go back and troubleshoot AutoHand the following day, it started giving me issues again. So I just took a different path with trying to get the project to work again. But yeah, this is just a simple scene. Got the cube you can interact with. This is a plane, and then that's just the player hands. So hypothetically, I can just move this to any scene and all the same logic and make it work for whatever it needs to do in context.